This is Get Real with Bob and Stacy, the show that helps you learn about the mortgage and real estate markets. Get the inside scoop from their expert list of guests and have some fun along the way. Now, here's Bob Gallagher and Stacy Alcorn.
Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real, and you're joining us for our Leaders and Legends segment. Our first guest today is Ken Hanscomb, Chief Operating Officer and Invite Manager. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Hey, thank you, Bob. Stacy, great to be here.
So I want to give a little background on Ken. As Bob mentioned, he's the Chief Product Officer and COO of Invite Manager, the technology company helping many of the world's largest brands manage their corporate sport ticket programs and measuring their ROI. Ken is an expert on the Olympics planning process, ticket trends, and corporate sponsorships. So first, we have lots of questions for you, but I'm going to start with Invite Manager. What does your company do exactly?
Yeah, what we do is we make client entertainment easy for large corporate sponsors and help them prove their return on investment. For example, whether you're Federal Express, Coca-Cola, American Express, you have hundreds of thousands of tickets that you use to entertain your clients and drive business. Our software, which integrates directly with platforms like Salesforce and Oracle Sales Cloud, make it super easy for leaders to understand where those investments are being spent and whether or not you're taking your best prospects to the best events.
Huh, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. I wonder if it works so it is for prospects. Like I take employees too. Do you measure anything on taking your own employees out?
Yeah, so some companies do that as well, where they have certain programs like maybe it's a lottery or, they have this term called Ticket Tuesdays where any leftover inventory employees can come in and purchase for, half price. Depending on the company, they set different incentive programs for their employees, their prospects, and their customers to make sure that those assets that they've gotten through these important sponsorships, whether it's with the Olympics or the NBA or the PGA Tour, to make sure that they're utilizing those assets the best way that they can.
Huh. That's really awesome.
It's a great idea.
All right. So
it's a lot of fun.
Let's talk a little bit about what you do with the Olympics. First, you spent 17 days at the Rio Olympics in 2016. You attended over 30 events. What was the most exciting part of the experience for you from a business standpoint? What did Rio do right, and what lessons can be learned from other city organizers?
Yeah, Rio was a very interesting experience. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of chaos too. I think a lot of us, I experienced it firsthand. A lot of people saw early in the news. It started off maybe with a number of challenges, whether it was long security lines, maybe a lot of available tickets and empty seats. But throughout the games, it got better and better. The Rio team really and the city really improved throughout, and I think by the end things were running pretty smoothly. For me, my favorite events are always the swimming events, and had the opportunity to see, the historical swims by Michael Phelps and Katie Ledecky, just to name a couple of them. But really from a business perspective, I think a couple things that were really key there. The first is the ability to kind of improve in crisis mode. Rio really, it was a crisis very early on, and they really focused on the issues, whether it was transportation, whether it was the security line, and they improved throughout. I think that's really a second success story from a sponsor and business perspective was really what happened with TV and broadcasting. Some of the largest audience ever, specifically through whether it was social media or the online, not just through a typical TV viewership. But Rio itself was interesting. Some of the lessons for the future could be a little bit more advanced planning, realizing when your ticket sales aren't happening a year in advance, the ability to kind of get them out, more than they were able to at that time. But in general, I think Rio did about the best that they could, given the situation with the various crises they had going on.
So in general, I should probably know this, and I think Boston was trying to compete to have the Olympics here at some point. But is it profitable for a city? Because I understand like getting all the people to the city and you get all kinds of other perks, but it seems crazy expensive to have the Olympics in a city.
Yeah, and what do you do with the buildings afterwards?
Right.
Yeah, that's the chief problem that's really facing the International Olympic Committee right now. The last profitable games that we saw was, Atlanta may have been profitable, but really the LA 1984 Summer Games was really the last truly profitable Olympic Games that's been seen. And then now you've had three, basically Beijing, followed by Sochi, that just spent just tremendous amounts of money, and of course Rio was very expensive, especially heading into a downturn because of what happened in Rio in Brazil with the oil prices.
Right.
So as they're looking at the next couple of Olympic cycles, the cities that are kind of at the forefront now are ones that have the opportunity to actually, turn a profit, which, surprise, surprise, people really want to turn a profit for events like this.
Wow. So recently there was a meeting, the International Olympic Committee. They had an early June meeting. What was decided at that meeting?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise in terms of historically what's happened is that the executive board of the International Olympic Committee has recommended that coming up in September that both the 2024 and the 2028 games will be awarded at the same time. This is unprecedented in that it has not happened in over 100 years. The last time this happened was in 1921 when both the 1924 games, which coincidentally was awarded to Paris, and then to Amsterdam in terms of the 1928 games. So it's something that's kind of very exciting, I think, for at least the two cities that are left, Paris and Los Angeles. But there's still a couple of milestones for them to get past. Just because the executive board recommended it, what has to happen in about a week and a half here is the entire IOC committee, a couple hundred members really have to vote on that, say, yes, hey, that's what we're going to do. And then in Lima, Peru, in September is when they'll actually award who gets 2024 and who gets 2028.
Interesting. I just came back from Paris recently, and all I could say is that I thought Boston traffic was really bad. Paris is worse, and they drive crazy.
Yeah.
Like they go into these like little roundabouts at like 90 miles an hour, and basically I think the goal is you just go and everybody else watch out for you.
Yeah, just ram your way out of it.
Oh
again.
my God, it was ridiculous. So I cannot imagine the Olympics in Paris. But can you make a case for both Los Angeles and Paris, Ken?
Yeah, both of these cities, Paris and Los Angeles, have probably two of the better bids that the Olympics have seen in the last, let's say, 30 years from a profitability and a sustainability perspective. So starting with Paris, Paris, basically 95% of the venues are either current venues or temporary construction. They have a real focus really around having a green games, focused on 100% renewable energy and about 50% a reduction in carbon footprint. The other argument that Paris has is they've bid 6 times in the last 30 years unsuccessfully. And again, it'll be the 100-year centennial anniversary of the first Olympic Games in Paris, of which the founder of the IOC was a Frenchman named Pierre de Coubertin, who basically started the whole modern Olympic movement. So there's a very historical, emotional, as well as a conservation view in terms of their bid.
Wow. So
now for Los Angeles,
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask, what about Los Angeles?
Yeah, on Los Angeles, I mean, you got the weather, you have Hollywood, you have the whole story there. In addition, their bid is even more compelling in that right now it looks like it is planned to turn a profit. There are no permanent venue construction, and the couple of temporary venues that they're building are not very costly, right? You have basically an Olympic volleyball stadium that will be there at the Santa Monica Pier on the beach, and then you have an aquatic center that will be built on the USC campus. They don't have to build any housing, because they'll be leveraging a combination of USC's and or UCLA's student housing to host whether it's the athletes or a lot of the dignitaries or the folks that will be coming in for broadcasted media. So it's a very solid, financially sound, and a successful plan. So both of them have tremendous, I think, stories to tell. And I think it's going to come down to the wire in terms of who gets which one. And
when you say bid, is it the cities actually offering money to the Olympics to get the Olympics in their city?
Yeah, what it is, basically it's a proposal which includes all the financing, and it may or may not include government funds. So it's a combination of private-public partnerships. It includes all of the revenues that will come from ticketing, from local and national sponsorships. It also includes any expenses that will happen, as well as in some cases, if there's revenue shortfalls, who will guarantee any of those shortfalls. In some cases, those will come down to taxpayers. It also includes, what are they spending on security and any kind of national or federal government money that's required. So it's basically a holistic view in terms of what the expectations are, what they will promise to deliver, and then what are the financing, what is the financing situation, and what is the potential profit or loss associated with the bid.
Do the athletes and teams have any impact on choosing the city?
They don't directly, but one of the big focuses of the bid is what is the athlete and their family's experience. And that is one area where LA has specifically focused on making sure that is the best experience for not only athletes, but their families. Historically, there has been a problem where athletes have been unable to get tickets for their families. They're only given 2 tickets by some Olympic committees. Here in the U.S., our Olympic committee gives each athlete 2 tickets for every event that they're competing in, which can leave other family members kind of sitting outside venues, begging for tickets, having to go to scalpers, because many times these are very popular events. What LA has done is said, hey, you know what, regardless of what your national committee has done, the Olympics itself will be providing tickets directly to you and your family. They're also setting up special family areas that are within the Olympic Village so that the athletes can be close to their families. So it's a really unprecedented view in terms of how do we make sure that the athletes, which Olympics are for, are really truly a world-class experience for them.
I wonder if over the last 10 years, have you seen that there are far less cities that even put a bid in because of basically you kind of, with all the terrorism there is today, that basically it's like you put a target on your city by even trying to get the Olympics there?
Yeah, I think it's been less about terrorism. It's been more about this large, lavish expenses that we've seen in, in Rio, that we've seen in Sochi, and that we've seen in Beijing, where if it's being funded on the backs of taxpayers, we're seeing referendums show up in cities like Hamburg and Budapest and Rome, where basically the citizens are saying, hey, we're not going to use our hard-earned tax dollars that we're funding for a bunch of elites to come to our city and throw parties for themselves and leave, in some cases, you see in Rio right now, a number of venues that were built specifically for the games that aren't being cared for. And so the International Olympic Committee is really focusing on how do we do better there, and that's why the focus on the Paris and Los Angeles bids, with very few things being built, and budgets that are roughly a half to third to a fourth of the previous 4 or 5 Olympic cycles, is what they're trying to do to start re-attracting cities to come and pull off the games.
Okay. As far as both Paris and Los Angeles goes, can you share any insight in terms of TV viewers, higher attendance in certain areas, ticket sales, corporate sponsors?
Yeah, I'll say a couple things in terms of this. I think in terms of when we look at U.S. participation, TV viewership, for this last Olympic cycle, even though it was in a U.S.-friendly time zone in Rio, it was down 17%, and it was down 25% specifically in the 17 to 39, age range. I think if it ends up being in Paris in 2024, at least in the U.S., will continue to see some of that decline. However, if Los Angeles gets 2024, I think we'll see a real revival there. If you look back at London for their 2012 Olympic cycle, they did have, in the lead up into them getting the games, they definitely had over a number of years, it really trailed off in terms of participation, in terms of sponsors, in terms of viewers, in terms of fans, but that really renewed the energy, and I would expect the same thing to happen in 2024, specifically if LA gets it. Right now I think Europe is on a high because of coming off the 2012 London Games, which were very successful, and so I think it will continue there. So I think the real risk that the International Olympic Committee has to look at is if you continue to have declining TV viewerships, the NBC contract with the IOC makes up 25% of their annual revenues. So I think you have to look really closely at how that would play with viewerships and in any renewal dollars, what it would mean if they continue to see declining viewership. But they could potentially say, hey, by bringing it to LA, we're going to have much higher viewership, at least here in the United States, and that's something we want to preserve and protect and potentially even grow that revenue over time.
So much goes into it that an average person doesn't even really think about. So we have a couple minutes left. how can our listeners find out more about Invite Manager and follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me by checking me out on Twitter. It's Twitter. My handle is Ken Hanscomb. That's KenHanscom. And you can visit us at invitemanager.com to learn more about our products and our services and how we can help you make client entertainment easy and improve the ROI.
Okay, 1 minute left. So let's talk about who is the perfect client for Invite Manager.
Yeah, so any corporation that has sponsorships and or tickets, whether it's a suite, at the Boston Celtics at the TD Garden, whether it's with the Red Sox, anyone that has a tickets and or suites and or assets that they use to entertain their clients and they're not sure what they're going. If you're using spreadsheets or putting those tickets inside a desk, Invite Manager can help make that a lot easier for you. And we can actually help you track and understand how those tickets are driving business for your company and helping you improve the experience that your clients have with you.
It sounds amazing. So it's something
it
for
does.
even smaller companies, because I am notorious that I always hold the tickets, and then it's like an hour before the game or event. I'm
Literally an hour before.
Always. I'm texting people and emailing saying, oh my God, I forgot to give away the tickets.
That's right. We can put it online and make it easy for you, even transfer them between people online so you don't even have to hand them to them if they're across the city from them.
Wow, that's pretty
Yes.
cool.
All right. I'm going to visit Invite Manager. Ken, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after this.